Hi everybody and welcome to the Cannes Special Report of Writers on Film. My name is John Bleasdale, I'm a writer and film critic, and I'm here with a special guest. Do you want to introduce yourself, Totes?
I'm not so special, but I am the managing editor of EuroNews Culture. I've been doing that now for the last 3 years, and that's about it, really.
Excellent. And we've been watching some films, and it's great to talk to you because I wanted to go back a little bit to cover some films that we haven't talked about so far on the podcast. One of these was perhaps the biggest film going into the festival, or one of the biggest films going into the festival, Mad Max Furiosa.
Wow, it certainly was hyped. My expectations were high, perhaps because of the wave of the hype, and you know, I really loved Fury Road as well. But even though it was kind of, you know, it was amusing, it was a bit fun here and there, it was also a bit tedious. I'm a bit reluctant to say it because, you know, so many people worked on it so hard, and, you know, some of the effects were fantastic, but it just did have that sort of, I've seen this before, I've been here before, and after the great opening sequence, after about really the first 30 minutes, it just seemed to just peter out. Yeah.
I know what you mean about being reluctant to criticize it, especially George Miller. I feel he's given so much good to the world with Mad Max and Babe and Happy Feet that, you know, it feels hard to kick him.
No, exactly. No, I can say it. You know, but I just couldn't escape that feeling. You know, it's you know, in this job, you know, it's an occupational hazard. I think to sort of, you know, you're decrypting, decoding, deconstructing films all the time. But this one, you know, I just really tried to leave all of that to one side and just think I'm an ordinary punter, if you like, but I just bored.
Oh no!
I'm really sorry to say, you know, if I ever run into George Miller, I'll buy him a coffee, but it just didn't hit the heights for me.
It had some action sequences were good.
Yeah, absolutely. It had some action sequences and performances were really good, but I think overall it just didn't really have. It wasn't really. I was expecting something a bit more edge of your seat, and it was very much sort of bum in the back of your seat, and just kind of, you know, I didn't fall asleep. I wasn't that bored. I mean,
I went for a wee.
Well, yeah, it's well timed, but no, I just thought it was just like, you know, I wasn't looking at my watch, but I was like, this is going to end. When is it going to end? You know, could I have done something else in my 2 hours? Yeah, which isn't good, is it? Yeah.
Okay, let's move quickly on.
Please.
But one last question about that. Anna Taylor-Joy, what did you think of her performance?
I thought she was good. Yeah, I thought it was a solid performance, but it wasn't sort of spectacular. It didn't leave me with the same wow, you know, as Charlize Theron in you know, in the fuller adult. Maybe she needs a bit more time to mature into the role, or maybe that was deliberate, to have her sort of feeling her way through it, the sort of, you know, the gritty upbringing, and then sort of, you know, against all the odds. Yeah, it's a solid performance.
Okay. So moving on to Megalopolis, which is a film I've already talked about extensively with Christina Jerling-Biro on her podcast, Pop Culture Confidential. Just thank God I remembered the title there. Save my blushes. But so I want to get other people's takes. What did you make of Francis Ford Coppola's possibly his last film?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I was asked this question by about 5, I don't know if people knew I was in there, or particularly people zoned in on me just as I was coming out of the theatre, especially having to do it in another language as well was a bit tricky for me, but initially I was very kind of confused a bit. I was like, wow, you know, I need a bit of time to just think of something coherent to say to these people. Maybe it's going to come after a couple of days. I felt, and I've read a lot of really negative Megalopolis, you know, you name it, why did you bother 40 years for this? And I feel a couple of days afterwards that was maybe a bit harsh, too harsh. I mean, for sure, one could say it has a bit of a rambling story. It does go all over the place. It is a bit potentially pretentious. But, it's his last film. Why not? I think you've got to give people a bit of slack. I just think, I just don't know whether it was just too much. It was a bit like, no,
there he goes.
Yeah, there he goes, coming for me. It's probably George Miller. I don't know if overall I think it was a bit like in Nigeria we have a thing called a big egg, which is like an enormous omelette where you throw everything into it, and once you're kind of quite skilled, it can taste quite nice. But initially, it can be a bit messy, and I felt this was a bit of a big egg, really, a bit messy, a bit too much. Yeah, eat with caution.
Excellent. That's the first time we've had anybody compare a film to a Nigerian dish. It won't be the last.
Keep talking. I'll tell you, I've got plenty more.
Okay, brilliant. I feel similarly to Megalopolis. I think, in some ways, people are nailing their colours to the mast a little bit too quickly. I think it's a film that does take a little bit of digestion. It does need to be seen in the context of his career. I think it's going to have a shadow, this film. I don't think it's just going to disappear the way so many of his recent films have.
Sure.
So we shall see. I'm sort of withholding on that. I know that's a coward's choice, but there you go.
No, not at all. I think just some things just can't be neatly wrapped and folded up. A lot of people I know who were writing reviews for it took time to just think, I've got to get my thoughts clear before this, even though you may feel an initial revulsion. There was still, like I say, there was so much to unpack there. Some things which perhaps should be packed really quickly away and thrown out, but then it was like, God, why did he put those in? What was going on there? Why? Overall, I can't escape that initial thing I said to people when I was coming out, was that it did make me think, and subsequently seeing his press conference and hearing him talk about it, sure, as you say, it's possibly his last film. He clearly feels so passionate about the state of the world, of politics, the next generation. He spoke a lot about his kids. To try and resume all of that. Okay, there are claims that it was meant to be a 4-hour cut, or that's what he wanted. He had to be talked down to, I think, 3. He's got a lot to say, and perhaps he needed a bit of help, perhaps, to interpret that. Maybe.
Okay, so from 2 long films which were, let's say, received with some reservations, to put it kindly, let's move on to a film that, when I saw it in the Debussy press screening, got the loudest applause I've heard yet this festival. Emilia, Perez. What was your take?
Wow, absolutely wonderful. I mean, everything for me, I think, a film should be about. Not only, because it had, guns and, girls and boys, drama, songs, it just really, really, really well held together. There was drama, there was suspense there, enormous performances from pretty much everybody involved. And it was a really entertaining ride. It just took you from A to B to C, and did a really sharp handbrake turn to get to E. Absolutely loved it.
So this is like a narco musical set in Mexico about a gangster who, with the help of an ambitious lawyer played by Zoe Saldana, goes through a sex transition and becomes a woman. It's a musical, as I said, and it really plays with lots of different tones. What about the musical aspect? Are you a fan of musicals, Totes?
Yeah, I mean, it's not perhaps the first thing I'll think of when I want to sit back and relax, but I like 42nd Street. I like I was trying West Side Story. You name them. Even Oliver. It's something I kind of share with the kids, because I think it's not perhaps a popular art form nowadays, in terms of being, even though they do crop up every now and again, they're not something which when I was growing up I think was there all the time. The stars who were singing and dancing, you'd have to perhaps, I know they all do it and they're all talented, but in terms of the ones who openly do it, some wouldn't perhaps know or be familiar that Zoe Saldana was, you know, a trained dancer, for example. So so I like the musicals, but I thought what was really clever about it was that you know, it was interesting seeing at the end credits it was from an opera, from a book as well, and I thought, well, even for people who just like, oh my god, they're going to go into song now, you know, why? The performances and the energy in those musical numbers, you know, like watching some of them were like watching really, really slick pop videos. You still had so much drama and tension in those, with these sort of interspersed between the people dancing and the people who were still sort of being straight, still being, you know, it was almost like a fourth wall breaking in some respects. So I think there was something for everybody.
Yeah, and Jacques Audiard, the first director to present a film, I think, so far in the festival, where I've been very surprised by what they've done. They've really gone in a different direction to their usual work.
Which is just what you want, really, I think. I mean, you know, sure, we love these directors and filmmakers and actors because there's always an element of, well, you know, you've been so successful with that, give me a bit more of, you know, what I really liked, maybe with a little bit of a twist, but this was like a complete twist. It's like shoving your face right in it, really, which I think is great. You know, what's the point of being in that position if you can't use it to try and break new boundaries for yourself, do something different, and you know, life is about making mistakes, but if you can put it off as he did, wow, fantastic, chapeau.
Possible awards?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, we're just a week into the festival. Still many films to see, so many films I haven't even seen over the last like 4 or 5 days, but I was really blown away by that.
Amazing. Listen, thanks so much, Totes. It's been a really good talking to you.
Right, it's been a pleasure joining you. Please invite me again.